And I'm Matt Hanna.
And this is Horror Hour with the Hannas,
where we talk about all your favorite scary movies.
And today we are talking about an apocalypse kind of movie.
It Comes at Night.
Yeah, I forgot
I
what it's called for a sec.
Are you looking at me
really
right now?
Dumb.
That's funny.
Yeah, I have it right
It
here,
Comes at Night.
and yet I forgot.
Which I've seen before, and I'm watching it again, I think, for the first time rewatch.
Yeah.
And this was a pretty big deal when it came out in, 2017?
Was it a really big deal?
I remember people talking about it, but maybe it was because there was a huge controversy because the trailers made this movie out to be something that it is not.
I did hear that. People were really PO'd about that.
I feel like I remember it being talked about, and I remember hearing very good things personally.
Yeah, I know it got really high praise once it came out in the festival circuit. It had its premiere at Overlook Film Festival, which, love the name. So it got praise pretty immediately. Mm-hmm. And so I think between that and then between people thinking that the trailer was misleading, it definitely had its fair share of haters too fairly early on.
Which I will say we were not. We didn't see this in theaters. I think we waited for it to come out. But we ended up watching it. And I really remember enjoying it, but finding that I didn't remember a lot about it until we watched the most recent time. And I think I probably liked it better this time around.
On rewatch, I was like, oh, I remember every minute of this movie, I think.
But beforehand, you're like, what even happens?
I mean, I knew how it ended.
I know how it ended, yeah.
I knew what it made me feel, and that was what was important with this one, I would say. Well, this is a 2017 movie, like we said. It was written and directed by Trey Edward Shults, starring Joel Edgerton, Christopher Abbott, and Carmen Ejogo. The cast and crew, a fun fact of this, the cast and crew signed a non-disclosure agreement that forbids them from revealing what comes at night.
That's silly. That's part of the misleading marketing, to be honest.
Well, because people thought something came at night, like a zombie monster or something.
Yeah,
and that's certainly not what it's referring to.
Well, we're spoiling. We're already spoiling because it's an old movie. There's no physical thing that comes at night.
Yeah.
What comes at night is paranoia.
Yeah.
And that's what this movie's really about, is paranoia. And it's really good at being about that. So.
Wow, you're just throwing the themes out right away,
All right, I'm
Matt.
sorry. Well, I think it's critical to acknowledge what it is.
Oh, yeah. It's so integral to the plot that this is about two major things: paranoia and fear of death.
Yeah.
Well.
And fear of the outsider, which I think is part of paranoia.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. All right, continue.
Another fun fact, the layout of the house in this movie is pretty vague. It's never properly established. The only section of the home that's properly established is the hallway to the door and then the garage to the outside. The rest of the house, you don't really know exactly what leads to what, and this was done on purpose. Shults described it as a kind of labyrinth and a metaphor for the mesh of Travis's head. Mesh. Also, he said, since we're dealing with nightmares and headspace and stuff, I never wanted it to be super clear. Never wanted it to be clear, this is where this is, and this is where this is.
That's interesting. I guess it does feel a little labyrinth-like, but I don't think about it too hard because feel like I understand the space. It's like there's the inside and the outside.
Well, and I think it does make it mildly disorienting, but in a way that you don't necessarily notice.
Yeah, I would say I wouldn't have realized unless you brought it up.
But I do think it does play a part in we don't actually understand the space that they're living in. So when they do have these outsiders in their space,
you don't know where anybody is. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. This movie was inspired by Schultz's father's death. He said, I had a messy relationship with my dad. He battled addiction for a long time. I cut off our relationship, and after 10 years, I saw him on his deathbed with pancreatic cancer, and he was so full of regret for the life he led. And I was just trying to help him find some peace. It was one of the most traumatic experiences of my life. I have never been that close to death.
That is terrible. But I think that makes sense given how the movie goes. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I definitely see where that comes into play.
Yeah, especially with Joel Edgerton's character and how the fate that they get to by the end of the movie.
Yes. Joel Edgerton, while prepping for this movie, indicated that he didn't go full method, but he did a little method. He said, I had a little house sort of in the middle of nowhere. I bought myself some guns and some machetes and explored. I wasn't going crazy method on it, but I felt like we needed to get a sense of the survival aspect, the survivalist world. So we did a bit of that in the lead up to the movie.
That's funny. He's doing harmless method acting,
yes.
is what I would call it. He's not bugging anybody.
That's what method acting should be.
Yeah, he's not being an idiot method acting like the Jared Leto version. It's barely even method acting anyway. He's just creepy and weird.
Being a fucking creep and sending people condoms and shit.
And rats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jared Leto.
He sucks.
We don't like you.
Well, he's also a cult leader. So, like.
Yeah. I actually feel so shit that we inadvertently saw him live.
30 Seconds to Mars.
They opened for Muse, which we were very enthusiastic about. And that is who we bought those tickets for. And then when it was 30 Seconds to Mars, I was like, oh, fuck, that's Jared Leto, bro.
If you don't believe me when I say that Jared Leto has a cult, look up Jared Leto Cult Island. It's a real thing. You, like, pay to come worship him. And he dresses like Jesus.
And then it gets worse, because then he tried to play an Italian man and just went full Mario.
Yeah. I never made it through that movie. Neither did you.
No, because it was boring. We got through, like...
I just wasn't enjoying.
We got through the sex scene, and then we were like, we've had enough.
Yeah. It might be good. I'm not going to judge it without finishing it, but maybe someday.
But we weren't into it where we stopped. Alas. Before we get into the nitty-gritty with this film, we did ask our followers if they had a favorite A24 film, since this was distributed by A24. Movie Postmortem Podcast said The Witch. One of our followers on Blue Sky, Christopher Gior, said Midsummer. And then another follower we have on Blue Sky, Kelly, said, I don't know if I could choose. I know my least favorite, though. Tusk. Vomit emoji. And I very much...
Tusk is interesting.
I mean, I, too, have the image of Justin Long as a walrus seared into my brain. And will be seared there for as long as I live.
It's not terrible. It's not great. It has a strong start, I think.
It's interesting. I kind of fuck with the concept. I think it's really interesting and kind of funny.
I like the ending.
Oh my god, the ending is brutal.
That's why I like it.
But the image of Justin Long as walrus, I don't know if it's like the most disgusting thing or like one of the funniest things I've ever seen. I'll never know. But we also asked this question to our followers on Instagram. Spooky Sips Podcast said Midsummer.
Good pick.
Let's Talk Terror said The Witch. And just for reference, that's my favorite too. Paranormal in Pennsylvania. Andrew from Revisionist Almanac. And Terrific Podcast, but Terrorific Podcast. They all said Hereditary. And finally, Cinema's Charm said, gonna switch it up here and say X or Talk to Me.
Talk to Me is not a bad pick. X is weak, in my opinion.
I kind of like the pick of X, though, because most people always say Pearl is better. So I like her doing her thing and being a little unique with that pick. I also like X better than Pearl.
You watched Pearl?
Yeah.
I never watched it.
Well, me and Cinema's Charm are in the minority liking X better than Pearl.
Wow.
Okay. We've gotten our A24 chat out of the way. Mm-hmm. Sad no one said this, but not surprising. Those were kind of the answers I anticipated. Honestly thought more people might say Talk to Me, but here we are.
People don't remember this movie, even though it's quite good. I guess, unfortunately, it's kind of forgettable. Even though it's like good. It's like one of those weird ones where I was like, this movie's pretty excellent. But I forget about it. So
yeah.
What does that say? I don't really know. That's a new one for me.
Okay. So let's do our 15-second summary.
Sure. Do you want me to go first?
Go ahead.
All right, go ahead. There's like a sickness, and then there's a family that two families join, and they get scared of each other. And then the one tries to leave, but they're actually sick and get everyone sick. And then they mostly all shoot each other or die from sickness.
Some of what you just said is debatable.
Fine. You're right. It is debatable.
Talk about it. I alternate with what I think, but I have an answer for what I think happened today. Okay.
Go.
Family meets other family. They decide to combine forces to be safer, except it's not safe. And one of the families gets the other family sick, and then they get mad at each other, and then they all try and kill each other, and then one of the families does end up dead, and then the other family probably ends up dead too.
Yep. Good work. I did just remember what I think actually happens.
Yeah. I was going to say, what you just said isn't what you told me your theory was.
I forgot. All right. Well, give us that full plot description since you're doing it today, and then we can chat about it.
Yay. You're back to being an illiterate.
I don't want to read. I'm sleepy.
That's okay. All right. A contagious disease ravages the planet. A couple, Paul and Sarah, and their teenage son Travis are secluded in their home deep in the woods in an undisclosed location. After Sarah's father contracts the disease, they kill him and burn his body. That night, they capture an intruder breaking in. Paul ties him to a tree and places a bag over his head overnight to confirm he's not suffering from the disease. The stranger, Will, explains he was searching for fresh water for his wife and son. Sarah suggests taking the strangers in, reasoning the more people, the easier it would be to defend themselves. Paul reluctantly agrees and drives Will to collect his family. Paul returns with Will, his wife Kim, and son Andrew. After establishing their rules, which include keeping the only entrance locked with a key Paul or Sarah wear around their neck, the two families grow closer. One day, Travis's dog Stanley begins barking aggressively at an unseen presence and chases it into the woods. Travis, who has followed Stanley, insists he heard something in the woods. That night, Will seemingly contradicts the story he told Paul earlier, resulting in Paul's increasing distrust of Will. That evening, Travis discovers Andrew sleeping on the floor of his grandfather's old room, suffering from a nightmare. He also finds the front door of the house open. The families investigate, finding a bleeding and sick Stanley on the floor. They kill and burn the dog. After Travis reveals the door was open, Sarah suggests sleepwalking Andrew open the door. Paul suspects Andrew is infected and decides they should quarantine in their own separate rooms to ensure no one is sick. The next morning, Travis overhears Andrew crying constantly. Kim tells Will they need to leave. Travis informs his parents of this and indicates that he too may be infected. Paul and Sarah don protective masks and gloves and take weapons to confront Kim and Will. Will draws a gun and holds Paul captive. He insists his family is healthy, but repeatedly tells his son Andrew to keep his eyes shut and orders Paul to remove his mask. Will demands Paul give him a fair share of food and water so they can leave, but Sarah and Paul overwhelm Will and force him and his family outside, where they eventually shoot all three members of the family. Later, Travis opens his eyes in bed, visibly sick. His mother comforts him as he dies. Paul and Sarah, who are seemingly infected, sit at the dinner table in silence. Whew.
Damn.
Sinister fucking ending, bro.
It's very good.
All right, let's talk about it. We said we like this movie.
Yeah, I really like it. I think it's very dread-filled. I think it looks great, and the form of this movie and the way it looks really drives home the way it's supposed to make you feel. Mm-hmm. And that's really cool. I think especially like the night shots, like it is very scary when nighttime comes here, because that's when all that like paranoia and dread start coming in. Mm-hmm. And they do a really good job of using night to be very scary. And I can't do a good job of explaining why. So if you can back me up.
Some thoughts.
Okay.
Well, I think part of why nighttime is scary is like, one, it's not just nighttime. It's that Travis continues to have nightmares, and it's the aspect ratio changes when he's having a nightmare. So he's wandering the house. The aspect ratio is different. And there's always like something mildly weird happening. He's either slowly approaching the door and the door just slightly slides open, or he's dreaming he's out in the woods and he can't see what he's looking for. So I think there is just this aspect of like what is in the dark that you can't see being there. In this case, that's representing something, not physically a thing that's there, but we don't really know that. So I think that makes it very suspenseful.
Agreed.
I think all of the shots of the red door are really cool too. That's the
that's like the main only door that you can come in or
out. Yeah. I think the shots of that door are really great because it's like such a stark contrast between the door and the darkness around it, which is really fun. I think this movie does a really good job with setup. The opening scene with Grandpa dying sets up the threat immediately.
Yeah, and you know the threat is real. Like you can see that he has some kind of illness and like sickness.
Like you realize maybe, later we come to realize that there's a lot of paranoia going on here, but they're paranoid because there is something real happening that they don't want to happen to them. They're not just like psychologically making the threat up. The threat is real.
Yes.
So I think that makes us scared too of like, they
it's
really
smart,
could get this. Yeah.
It's smart because like this isn't a story of is the disease real or not. The disease is real. Mm-hmm. It's do we have it or not?
Yes.
Or does somebody have it or not?
Yeah. I think they also do a really good job characterizing the family, specifically Joel Edgerton's character, Paul. Like, they immediately set him up as being pretty hardened, pretty paranoid, but also pretty, like, prepper. Yeah, I think they do a really good job setting him up for who he is going to be throughout the story. And, like, how he responds to a threat. And he's not afraid to, like, do something pretty grim to protect himself and his family.
This is the movie that made people want him to play Joel in The Last of Us.
And I get it. It makes a lot of sense.
He also kind of looks like him.
Yes.
But yeah, this movie, I'm when I say this is the movie, I'm assuming, because I remember people said that before, and this feels very Joel-like from that game.
Oh, I agree. Also, his name is Joel, so wouldn't that be cute? I love Pedro, but if it weren't Pedro, this also would be my pick.
Yeah, some people were back in the day saying Hugh Jackman, and I was like, stop this. Like, not him. He's good.
Let him go sing a show tune.
Yep.
Leave him in peace. He doesn't want to do this.
Pedro's ended up being a very good pick, but I do think that Joel Edgerton, like, especially in this, gives that vibe of like any means necessary type guy.
Yes.
To a detriment.
Sure. Yeah.
Where Pedro, I don't always feel that with. Pedro's too kind.
My sweet bean. I love him.
I think he would be embarrassed if you referred to him as that.
I don't think he would be. I think he'd be
funny?
fully accepting. He has admitted he looks at his own fan accounts when he needs a confidence boost.
Good for him.
Like, he would love it.
He's silly.
He's an adorable man. I love him.
So tell me
He's
more.
Also beautiful.
Tell me more things you liked.
I thought that they did a really good job kind of showing the passage of time in a way that wasn't like boring or stupid. Once they have the family coming in, they do this montage to kind of like show the family getting to know each other, like shots of them at dinner or playing a board game or yada, yada, yada. So I think that even though we don't see a lot of dialogue of them blatantly getting to know each other, I think they set that up very well, while also showing that Paul is still suspicious to a degree, which obviously comes out more and more as then Will says things that contradict things he already said. So I kind of like how that piles on top of each other.
Overall, this movie's got a tight script.
Yes.
That's like the best way to put it. Like, it's short and to the point, but like everything is there for a reason and is pulled together very well.
Yeah, and on that, with like how tight this script is and how well tied together it is, like even the dog serves a very specific purpose, which I love. Not only is that Travis's connection with his grandfather who's deceased and like obviously a beloved family pet, but it also ties into like the paranoia and the stress, and it's what brings upon that in a much more intense way. Yeah, it's just done really well. And also, when the dog was barking in the movie, our dog barked at that dog.
Oh my.
Just breaking shit
I'm
while
breaking
recording.
stuff. It's okay. I'm leaving that in. All right. So, what else? Is there anything you didn't like? Or is there more stuff you did like that we want to talk about?
Something else that I did really like is that this movie definitely makes you feel claustrophobic. And part of that is with the aspect ratio changes. Mm-hmm. And part of that is the way it's shot.
And the labyrinth of the house, as
yes.
we talked about before.
When there are all the like indoor shots, they are really tight. They are really tight into people's faces and their bodies. So we've talked about that also, before. In other movies. Yeah. So it also skews like your perception of the space, but also like you are right up in there and uncomfortable in their, you know, emotions because you're so close in. So I think that also gets that feeling of discomfort across in a really, really effective way.
We haven't talked all about Christopher Abbott at all, and I was going to say he's kind of perfect in this. This is like a role he was born to play. It's kind of like
Abbott has a fucking weird filmography.
He's getting such a weird. He was in that movie Possessor that we like,
which is great.
Yeah,
but then he's also
in Craven and
Wolfman.
Yeah,
yeah.
Craven. I feel like he's so good in this though. He's kind of this like himbo like dad that is kind of a masculine figure that's challenging Joel Edgerton's masculine figure as well. Mm-hmm. It's this kind of fun dynamic. And what's annoying, and I think about the whole, not annoying, and what makes the movie good is these families could thrive together and they just choose not to. Or maybe not choose not to, but they
choose not to. I think they're both extremely paranoid.
Exactly.
People.
But they just didn't need to be. Like, it's like them together is good. They're way stronger this way. Everything's going to be better for all of them, especially in this like really dire apocalyptic world. Like, unless people start banding together, this is over. Like, what are you going to do? The mom, dad, and son are just going to live together and that's it with their dog.
Yeah, like, what are you accomplishing?
Like, where are we going? And so bringing them together, it's like, oh, this could be nice. Like, this could be like the building of a community, and it's just the community tears itself apart from the inside. Very, I was going to say witch trials, but that was less paranoia and more revenge and being bad to women.
I mean, it was also paranoia.
Combo, yeah. I think it was also just men being idiots.
And women.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I forgot. Women were the ones calling out other women. Classic. Cool.
Standard shit. Yep. Different day. Yeah. I mean, it's very...
I was going to thematically tie it more into, and I love doing this though, but McCarthyism and fear of...
Well, I was going to compare it to The Thing, so that's
there
very
you go.
fitting.
Fits into our whole McCarthyism. Yeah. This one even more, I think, than The Thing somehow. But maybe it's because it's like realer, because it's like real people. And they really, I think, maybe get paranoid over nothing in some way, which I also think was a big part of McCarthyism.
It's nothing because they're actually sick.
Fine, you're right. There is someone that is actually sick. But you're right. The wrong people are fearful, though.
Well, I don't know if I would say the wrong people are fearful, because basically there's two ways to interpret it. Either Andrew was the cause of the illness.
Wait, which one's Andrew? The child. The child. No, I don't think he was.
Can I explain the theories?
Yes.
So either Andrew is the cause of the illness, so they're obviously right to separate themselves in quarantine, and then obviously the family knows Andrew is sick and that's why they're trying to leave. But then there's the other theory that the whole time Travis is sick, and that's why he's having all of these nightmares, and it's just like an early symptom of being sick. And he probably already gave it to Andrew, and that's why Andrew is sick. So the concept of like the family, Paul and Sarah, being mad at the, quote, outsiders is interesting because it might not be their fault. It might have been Travis's the whole time. And
that's my thought. I think Travis is sick. I think
it's a more interesting reading that way as well. But I think both like make sense in the timeline of the film.
And we have to also remember that we see a lot of unreliable narration when we go into Travis's dreams.
Yeah.
That it's not entirely clear that they're his dreams, right?
I think it actually is.
It is
and
clear?
We just missed that the aspect ratio changed as often as it does. Because it does. Every single nightmare sequence, the aspect ratio is manipulated. And then, by one point in the movie, the aspect ratio changes and it just stays there regardless of dream or not dream. Which just kind of makes you feel like you're continuously trapped in the nightmare. And that is actually something that our writer-director, Trey Edward Shults, has talked about in interviews. He said that was his intent. His theory was, by the end of the movie, nightmare and reality are one. Reality has purely become a nightmare. The worst thing that can happen has happened, and now we're just stuck in it.
That's a cool decision all around. I think the aspect ratio thing's really neat. But so most of the time it changes into the nightmare until the very end, and then... So that does kind of tell us we're not entirely sure what's nightmare and what's not, right? Or do you interpret that any time prior to the end, if it's changed, that's Travis's sick nightmare?
Yes.
Okay.
That's how I interpret it.
I mean, I think that makes sense. And I do think Travis is the one that's sick, which is like the whole irony of it. is that Joel Edgerton is mad at the other family and paranoid of them when really it'd be your own.
Well, and that's what I think makes it more thematically interesting if it is Travis, because not only is there paranoia, but the paranoia is, what's the word I'm looking for?
Not necessary. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sure. Unfounded.
Yeah.
That would be the word. There we go. Look at us. English.
Yes, thesaurus.
Okay. Well, we're already jumping into themes with all this. So I was going to say there's nothing I dislike about this movie. I think my biggest issue is like I watch it and I like it and then I don't remember things about it, which is very weird. I don't know why this movie is so forgettable to me.
I feel like this movie is flawless to me, but it's such a simple, isolated story that I feel like we just don't have that much to think about or talk about once
it's
you've done
over.
a couple minutes of thinking post-movie. I think once you've made the decision about who is at fault for the illness coming into the home and when the illness came into the home, once you get through that, I think there's not much more to think about.
That's true. And there is a lot of theorizing to do, but I do think it is kind of clear cut.
Well, I think that is mostly clear cut. The only thing I think that's not clear cut about that is that they've kind of established that when people get sick, they get sick quick. That is their knowledge of the illness, and that's what happened to Grandpa. So that's why it leads you to believe it's not Travis, because Travis should have been knowingly symptomatic beyond just the dreams.
Yeah.
So that is the thing that I think they kind of throw in you to be this wrench.
Yeah, I mean, it all makes sense. Could be because he's younger. They might not know that much about the illness, you know? But like for us, we've only seen one person get sick.
Yeah.
I was also going to say I think there's a lot of reading into the motivation of Christopher Abbott's character, because I think there's some people that believe those two other people that we run into that they kill are his brother-in-law and dad or whatever. Or not his dad, which is interesting.
And that's why he doesn't really do anything until
the last second. Yeah. Which is very interesting about like what you'll do for survival. And like, did he have more sinister motives when showing up? And it kind of lets you sit with all that. And I think it kind of asks you like, what would you do?
Well, I think like he is very clearly there to steal resources because he needs them.
But they end up not stealing resources. They end up actually working together because he has to.
He has to.
But it makes sense to do it. It's kind of an interesting. I think it is like that. What would you do in this situation type question?
Yeah, like you do what you have to do to survive
and like keep your family. Which then leads back into the themes of, you know, the paranoia, where it always comes down to like not working for the collective, but working for the individual and being like, I got to do what's best for me and my family. And I don't care how many men, women, children I have to slaughter to do it, which is like a very American mindset. I was going to say, it's
giving America.
Which this plays into that very well. I think we still see that paranoia among just neighbors. Yeah. Like that's a huge thing in this climate in general. When I also think social media doesn't help, and I think old people having no defenses to online bullshit doesn't help. But I just think of all the people playing on their stupid and what's the neighborhood watch app, just like constantly like, oh my god, what crazy thing is happening, instead of just like communicating with their neighbors. But I digress. Those are my thematic points. I got nothing else. What do you got on themes?
Yeah, I mean, like we said, I definitely think it's about how various situation can instill fear and paranoia in us and what we do in response to that paranoia. Like in this case, they're literally willing to kill this family over their paranoia when they have no evidence that this family is at fault. Especially because their son even says to them, I think I'm sick. Like, he already is acknowledging he thinks he's sick already. There's no fucking point in killing this family. You're all sick then. But it doesn't matter because they're paranoid enough that they still, like, don't trust this family or want them around.
When they try to kick them out, I was just thinking about how good that scene is. There's
It's
like so
really
much tension with
stressful.
the guns, and they're trying to like, and they like show us the kids' eyes, and they won't show the kids' eyes, and that's
It's
telltale
really
sign of sickness.
stressful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nuts. Really good filmmaking. Intense, nice.
And it
scene.
makes you like scream at the screen, like, if your kid's fine, let
Show
him
the
open
eyes.
his eyes. But obviously his kid is not fine.
Yeah, but his kid probably got it from your kid, and it's just like
Yeah.
so insane.
And I think inherently I kind of root for the family that owns the home, Paul, Sarah, and Travis.
Oh, interesting. Well, because it seems like they're being shady.
Yeah, because they're set up as the family at the core of this.
Yeah.
That is where they start the movie, and it's Will and his wife and son, who are, well, just Will, but inherently then connected to him are his wife and son that are stealing from them. So, like, they're already kind of set up to be shady and suspicious. And then there's the point where, like, Will is actively saying things that contradict what he said. So I think we inherently have less trust for them. So for me, I'm like rooting for Paul, Sarah, and Travis to be okay. But at this point, you're already kind of suspicious that Travis is sick. So then it's, yeah. I think the end of this movie is particularly sinister.
Oh, it's awesome.
With
But
them
how else could it
just
end?
sitting there at the table,
Just,
looking
yeah.
visibly disheveled and screwed up.
Because they know that they're just gonna die soon.
Yeah,
They're gonna have
they
that
just
illness.
lost their kid. They know that they're going the same direction,
Yep.
and all of this was for fucking nothing.
Yep. All of their paranoia was for nothing too, as you said.
Yeah,
Because again, it was their own kid that brought it in. Mm-hmm. And I think that we can tie it to America once again. I got a really good one for themes here. It's just the idea of it's blaming the others instead of like looking within. Like the call was coming from inside the house type situation. So like if let's look at a real world situation, people are always like, oh, we need to have tighter border security because, you know, illegal Mexican immigrants are bringing fentanyl in.
yeah.
When if you look at the stats, the number one, or sorry, not number one, but the highest percentage of fentanyl is being brought in by U.S. citizens from Mexico, either crossing illegally or on like planes. Like it's not just people illegally crossing the border. Like that's coming in by citizens. So like doing this extra type border security doesn't actually help that cause.
well, and that's just every single U.S. issue at this point.
You're right. You can talk about like domestic terrorism
They
is a
try
much
and
bigger
point
deal
to-
than terrorism outside of our country coming in. Like
Yeah, they always try and point to illegal immigration being the cause of every little thing that's wrong in this country. Like, you don't have a job because an illegal immigrant is taking your job.
which is just also a falsehood.
Yes.
And most illegal immigrants are also paying taxes.
Taxes.
Like, we should say undocumented. I don't
Yeah,
like
I
saying
don't like the
illegal.
word
Sorry.
illegal. I'm saying that because that is the language
say.
that is used. No person is inherently
a lot of
illegal.
a lot of
or an
undocumented
alien.
people pay taxes.
Yes.
And so like the amount that they're, even if people think that they're like gaming a system in some way, it typically seems like they're giving back just as much. Like it's, from everything I've read, undocumented immigrants are still good for the economy if you want to look at it from that standpoint. They still pay taxes. They still add to consumers.
Well,
or
and
they add to-
now this stupid fucking administration is pulling IRS records to look at.
which is hilarious because it's like,
yeah.
undocumented immigrants do pay taxes.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So
Which they do.
Yeah, literally
We've
everyone.
been new.
We've been new, but some people didn't been new, I guess, allegedly.
Well,
But
either
it's
way.
just easier to have a scapegoat.
It just
outside
and
yourself.
that's exactly
Yes.
what this is. Like you're going to always point the finger at someone else and not look internal.
Yeah.
And I think that's a message we can all take away from this. Is sometimes you got to look within. It's not always someone else's fault.
Yeah.
It might be, but
Yeah.
look within as well, and also care about your neighbor, care about other people. I shouldn't have to tell you to care about people that aren't you and your family.
Yeah. Literally. I mean, they call it the golden rule for a reason. Treat others as you would want
That's
to be
funny.
treated.
That's the theme of this movie.
But we treat people like shit and then expect that everything should go well for us.
Well,
Fucking bananas world we're
that
living
is
in. But
what's really cool about this movie is just seeing the interactions. Like we set up all these personalities pretty early on, and then you kind of just set them with the ticking time bomb of the inevitable collapse of their relationships. It's a cool movie, almost like a character study.
It does.
I mean, it is a character study.
It is interesting. Like, I do wonder how someone who has exclusively lived in a more collectivist culture, how they would write this story. If they would write this story.
All right. Well.
Obviously, it's also about the fear of the unknown.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, like we've been saying.
That's it
very
all falls
in,
under the same, yeah.
But in the wise words of the director, the ultimate unknown is death.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, they're clearly so fucking afraid of dying that they're willing to kill other people to prevent themselves from having that outcome. They're so willing to do what it takes to survive, but like in this world, it does beg the question, like, is surviving worth it?
I was kind of thinking that too. Like, this world kind of sucks, you know?
I wouldn't want to survive. We said that on other episodes. Like,
this is not an apocalypse you want to be in.
No.
Yeah.
I don't care to survive.
That's how I feel about the, what's the one? Oh no, I can't think of it. The John Krasinski one.
Oh, A Quiet Place.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to be in the Quiet Place one either. That
I'm
sucks.
going to just scream and have
you're
get me day
do
one.
what the old man does on in the early part of that movie.
Well, that's my brother always says, like, if there's a super volcano eruption,
he always talks about nuclear bombs.
Or a nuclear bomb, like, will you come into a bunker? And I'm like, no.
Well, I always say, living where we live, we're in the best spot. We're going up in the blast. Be perfect.
Immediate bye-byes.
Immediate. Don't have to worry about radiation or fallout. We're good to go.
But, like, no, I don't want to survive through that. That seems hard. I don't care.
Too much work.
Also, just, like, what is the point of surviving if you're not enjoying life?
Wow. Well, that's a philosophical question.
I mean, I have certainly, with having depression, asked myself that question plenty of times, which motivated me to, obviously, no one wants to be depressed anyway, but certainly motivated me to pursue resources to not feel like total shit all the time. Because, yeah, I want to enjoy the time that I have. And I don't want to just be living through bullshit that I don't need to deal with.
Yeah, the apocalypse seems kind of lame. You know?
Yeah.
Not a fan.
Yeah. I have no zombie apocalypse plan. I don't give a shit. I'm out.
Depends on the zombies for me, you know?
Take me, bro. I don't care. Seems scary.
Dawn of the Dead seem kind of fun when they're in that mall hanging out, you know?
Consumerism.
True. But no, they don't have to buy anything. You're just in the mall.
Stealing mall.
Yeah, it's awesome. That sounds great. I've always wanted to sleep in a mall and just use
steal things from a mall.
Yeah.
But I don't want to be stuck in a mall, because if I can't steal things from mall to where am I going with that?
Yeah, good
There's
point.
zombies everywhere. What's the point of stealing the things?
All right.
Because I would just take so much clothes, bro.
This is so silly. Okay, let's rate this movie. Unless you got something else you want to say.
Well, I wanted to talk about...
Oh, my bad. Go ahead. I'm ready to rate it. I was like, I'm done.
Specific favorite scenes or scariest scenes?
Oh, I always forget this. My favorite scene is probably when they try to kick the other family out.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really good.
I think that is.
And then one guy's been hiding a gun the whole time, right?
Yeah. I definitely think that's the tensest scene. I would say the other scene that I find scary, I don't know. There's like a particular nightmare that Travis has where he goes outside with the dog and he like sees a shape in the woods that I think is representative of like the illness and the paranoia and all that jazz. I think that scene is pretty scary.
Yeah.
I think all the nightmares like definitely give me the creeps effectively.
I agree.
I think this movie all around is really good. It's really solid.
Yeah, it's just solid. I'd recommend it.
Yeah. The fact that people don't like this, I've heard a lot of people say that it's too slow.
Nah, it's short. It's supposed to be. I don't know.
Because you're supposed to simmer in the dread.
Yes, you're supposed to like sit with it and put yourself in their shoes. I don't know. I just think that's a bad take.
I wonder if the people who feel that way about a lot of things just like...
are bad at empathy.
Lack empathy, yes. That's exactly what I was
All right, we
saying.
can't just accuse people that don't like a movie.
No, I'm not accusing
but
people.
I agree.
I am wondering with things like this. Because
if they're not good at putting themselves in
other people's shoes, yes. 100%. Someone commented that on one of our TikToks. They were like, you seriously don't find this movie scary? Maybe you just don't know how to put yourself
that was about
in anyone
Skinnamarink.
else's shoes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think some people watch horror for how it affects them via scares, where I think a jump scare is more for the viewer versus the people in the movie, where this is a movie about putting yourself in the shoes, because the scary things are not happening to you, the viewer. Mm-hmm. The scary things are happening to the characters.
Yeah.
And that's so scarier. And some people don't like that. Some people want, boo, funhouse scares.
Yeah, I don't need funhouse scare.
Yeah, I could do both.
All right, before we rate... We were given some icebreakers. I meant to do this earlier.
Oh, shit, okay.
And I forgot. So our quick ice melter.
Ice melter?
We're at the end.
Okay.
Our ice melter before we rate is, who are your favorite horror villains? I'll go first.
Are you going to steal mine?
No, it's not stealing when I said it first.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, mine are obviously Freddy. I love Freddy Krueger. Was him for Halloween. Check it out on our Instagram if you haven't. I would also say I fucking love Stu from Scream. Obviously,
that's the one I wanted to say. Stu and Billy.
I love Matthew Lillard, and I love a dumbass. And my last one would be Black Phillip from The Witch, because we love a scary goat.
All right, I have to mention Gabriel from Malignant, because it's just hilarious.
Yes.
Gabriel with his electric powers and karate. Mm-hmm. Love him.
The karate. Yeah. The police department scene is
beats
truly
up on police.
The definition of camp.
I feel like I gotta say... Ooh, I got one. David from Prometheus and Alien Covenant. Michael Fassbender. That's a good one, if we can count him. That's a crazy one. I was thinking of Alien from the Xenomorph. But I was like, no. I gotta love the whole family from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Bro, ew.
What do you mean? Dude, Leatherface is scary. I mean, they're all scary. They go together. They're best when it's all of them.
All right.
And I don't know if I have any other good ones.
Well, I named 3. You got 3.
Yeah, I got 3. I'm thinking hard about this. No, I think that's all I got.
It's a good list. Solid. All right.
Yep.
Let's rate a bitch.
All right, I'm giving this movie an 8 out of 10. I like it.
Fuck. Yeah, I was going to give that too.
Yeah, just give that also. Yeah. I mean, I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd, so 8 out of 10.
Yeah, a 7.5, 8, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, I think this will correlate into our new scoring system that friend of the pod, Matt, encouraged us to start doing, where we rate movies on a scale of -0 to 5.
-5.
-5 to +5.
Oh, I would probably give this like a 2 or a 3 on that scale. Maybe 2.5 on that scale. Plus 2.5.
That's different.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, I was going to go with like a 3.5, which rounds to a 7.
There you go.
So 7.5 feels, what I'm doing. We'll try and continue incorporating that scale, and eventually that scale will take over.
Oh, you think so?
Pretty funny.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm down.
Okay.
All right. I've been Matt Hanna.
I'm Hannah.
This is Horror Hour with the Hannas. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to Horror Hour with the Hannas. Make sure to listen to future episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or wherever else you can find podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube, where we post episodes and shorts. You can follow us at Horror Hour with the Hannas on TikTok and Instagram, as well as at Horror Hour on Blue Sky for more content. If you like the podcast, please follow and leave a review on your favorite podcasting app. Happy hauntings!